Hey everybody, thanks for stopping back in at the Red Barn. Last episode we made some pretty good progress on the shifter cables, and now I'm waiting for parts, another shifter cable, the trailing arms, and a couple of other things. So I think what we're going to do this episode is go back to working on the trunk. All right, I had done some work on the trunk before, and so some of this video is going to be from earlier. Just to kind of show you where I was. And so you're going to notice things like the plenum, wasn't quite as far along, and so it's out of sequence. I apologize for that, but the way things go sometimes, best laid plan, as they say. All right, well, I want to keep working on getting the Targa top stowage pickup points for the mounting clips, stowage clips figured out. So what I did here is I contacted our good friends at 914 Rubber, work on your karma, isn't that cute? And they have, everything. They have most everything you might need for, restoration stuff on your 914. Rubber seals, a bunch of hardware parts, and in this case, they have a nice little prepackaged, everything you need to update, restore, replace your the rear trunk Targa stowage stuff. So here's those plastic clips at the front, nicely packaged as a separate item. You can buy all this stuff separately, but they take the time to make a nice little one item order kit. Front clips with hardware. These are the two plastic pockets. There are clips on the front of the Targa roof, and when they flop down and you're storing the roof, they need somewhere to go, and these sit in the front of the sheet metal up there and provide a nice little pocket for those. So kit comes with two of those. And then here's what we're going to start with. These are the rubber, I call them the clips, but the roof holders. Again, complete with hardware. And the only thing to note is the roof is curved at the back. And so I don't know if you can see, but they're mirror image parts. They're not the exact same part. So you have to pay attention to which one goes on which side. And that one goes over here. Let me get these installed, and I know I'm gonna have to take the deck lid off, the trunk lid off, because that support bar that I put in to keep the curve in the trunk, because of the notch, that's not gonna clear the Targa roof. So I'm gonna have to do what I wanna do without the deck lid on. And by the way, what I'm gonna do is, rather than try to make a jig, I figure what I do is just put these in, bolt them in, put the roof in here, use the fact that the oil separator is too high, maybe put a little spacer in there on top of that, and then just put the put the clips on the front of the roof, set it in here, and fixture the roof, fixture the roof in place where I want it. Test fit a different deck lid, because I have the deck lid for this car. Take the plenums off so they're out of the way. And just fit the deck lid, make sure everything clears, and then the roof will just be holding these things in place where I want them, and I can just make my mount points right off of that. So I won't have to build a jig, I'll just use the roof itself as the jig. So let me get this all set up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the original trunk lid is back on the car, and this is going to allow me to figure out how high I can push the Targa roof before it interferes with this or starts to contact it. And then once I fixture that in place, I'll be able to then add the clips and make some mounts, figure out how I want to do that. But before we move on, this is the original color of this car. In 1972, somebody paid extra to have this color, which is, Porsche refers to it as paint to sample, or PTS, you'll hear it called. But this is PTS Raspberry from 1972. It's not pink. It's a really pretty cool color, and there's an outside chance the car might get painted this color. It's a little bit feminine for this build, but it's a really pretty color. It might be a bit too unusual, and it certainly isn't resale red. I don't know what it is, but factory Raspberry. Go look that up online. Look for Raspberry early 70s 914s. Really, really pretty color. But anyway, so now you can see that the roof is stored in here. It's clipped at the appropriate height at the back with our new rubber mounts. And as I mentioned, with this lid down, I can get under the car and push this up to see how high exactly I can make it. So it clears the air oil separator cap, and it still has clearance to this. And then once that's located, I'll then be able to put the clips where I want them and then figure out a mounting system, which I still have to do, but there you go. So let's get on to that. So the roof is in at the back, and to set it at height, at least as a start, I just threaded some nuts down onto the studs where the air oil separator sits, just to force that up. And then I went ahead and let the roof sit right on top of that cap. And that just gives me a basis for height so that when I close the lid, and here it might be difficult to see. Now again, that's a straight edge, but you can see that that engine lid's gonna have to come up. It's not quite a quarter, maybe 3/16. But you know, you compare it to back here, right? That's where it's gonna, that's how it should sit. It should sit, you know, follow that curve across. And I don't know, can you see that? As you sight up it, it just starts to drop. So it needs to be raised in the front on both sides. And that's gonna give me even more clearance. So I'm pretty sure I can make this work. Well, I figure I may as well give it the acid test. So I just bolted the air oil separator down, and now the roof is clipped in at the back, and it's not fastened at the front, which means it'll raise up a little bit, but I don't know if you can see, but there's clearance above that cap. So I'm good on having that fit. And like I said, it's clipped in at the back, but I know it's going to come up a little bit more in the front. And I still haven't addressed the fact that the deck lid's going to come up a little bit. What I want to do is work up exactly where these mounts need to be. And I harvested this whole trunk firewall out of the black parts car. And those of you that have done any kind of parts harvesting or panel harvesting out of a chassis, what a giant pain that was, and messy and loud. I didn't bother filming it because it's horrible to watch. And now I just got to do a little bit of removal of the old firewall piece, and then I can start using that, you know, trim that up and start setting it, you know, kind of figuring out where it's going to go. And I think what's going to happen is, depending upon how I like the looks of it, I may actually use that, or I may just use it to get the fitment of the Targa top retaining clips and, you know, build a more removable, you know, kind of an entirely removable trunk, which has been the plan all along. Well, ever since I decided I wanted a trunk. And that may be one piece, it may be two pieces, depending upon how cumbersome it is to get in and out of here. So let's get going on that. Well, okay, other than the fact that I blocked half of that with the towel, you can see what I'm up to here. Actually, so don't freak out too much, because, yeah, that's where the longitudinal ties into the rear suspension tower, the shock tower. But what's going to happen is it'll get plated. Well, how do I do this? It's going to get plated from here down to the outer part of the suspension console, and then capped. And so this whole thing will be just a giant box, you know, tying this to this. And yeah, I hate drilling out spot welds. So I try to remove as much material as I can. And then I'll just get in here and get everything but the spot welds. And then I only have a little bit of grinding to do. I wanted to leave this lip for a potential, you know, trunk. You know, that's where it'll land, and maybe there'll be some fasteners or something like that. But this is all TBD. So I still have some trimming to do, but now I'm going to go ahead and see. Oh, I got to remove that other chunk that runs up in there that's going to interfere with what's going on. So actually, let me get to that. All right, now you can see kind of what I'm up against, or up to, and up against. And now you get a look at, you know, this piece right here is this piece right here. So there's actually the back side of this that you can't see right here from this angle. Look around back here. That thing right there, this piece, is this piece. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to cut it. I think I'm going to cut it right here. Smooth this off, you know, get this out of here so this can butt right up against itself, you know, right? This panel can butt right up against itself because that's only one layer of material. And then I'm going to have to trim out, well, you can see it's going to interfere with the longitudinal. So I'm going to have to cut out at least, you know, this much of it up into about here on both sides, and then figure out what I want to do down here. Same kind of a deal. And then I expect I may have to mess with these corners. I don't know how I can get them to come around underneath here, but I haven't tried yet. So I'm going to get this trimmed up on both sides, and you can see, right? I want to just drop that down in there, and then I'll have the pickup points for the Targa top clips. And it may be something like I just leave the clip part, and I know I'm going to have to notch it in here for the plenum, you know, for the trunk clearance, like we did for the trunk. So I know that this part's going to have to get trimmed. This is the original latch for the engine lid, latch mount. That's going to have to go. But this is where the Targa top clips stow. Those little plastic cups that I mentioned, those go in there. And then obviously this is just rough trimmed, so still got to mess with that. But that really solves the big problem, which is where these clips go, and it gives me the basis of the firewall. And I don't know if I'll leave this or I'll remake parts of it, who knows. So still a bunch of TBD stuff. But that at least gets us going on probably the most difficult, I'll say, or the most challenging part of making that trunk insert. So there it is. A little bit more to do, but we're getting there. Well, they say a messy desk is a sign of a busy mind or something like that. And I have got a messy desk. I don't bother filming this kind of stuff because it's, you know, grind fit, cut fit, test fit, and all that good stuff. But let me put you over here for a second. And you can see this has all been trimmed and fit. So yeah, I know this is going to go in and you're going to think I'm a genius, but it's been done. This is just a dramatic reveal. And then, boom, just slots right down in there. And let me show you a couple of key indicators. This is a little bent, but you can see that sits right at the level it's supposed to on both sides. And it's, you know, it's not completely fit. And yeah, it's one level back here. So I'll cleco that or clamp it or whatever, but now I can absolutely positively locate my pickup points for the Targa roof. And yeah, I did opt to just slice off these little corners because you can't get it in and out otherwise. So I can either add those back on later. I salvaged them. They're over there. They're saved. And the reason the manifold is all the way off is because this there's still some interference here, and it has to be notched, but that's still going to be a little bit to work out. But you can see I can clamp this in place, put the clips on, verify that the roof fits, and go after the rest of this trunk. Now I think, and now that I'm thinking about it, I was thinking I would have the trunk, you know, come back down here, but then I got to get up over the bars, and I think that might be a little bit much to worry about because I have to deal with this. I have to notch it, and I've got this oil line that's got to get back, you know, involved with the cooler and the oil system. So what I'm wondering is if I actually make this, you know, maybe I bring it, you know, once the top is stored. I don't know, do I cover this? But at the very least, I think what I'm going to do is this will come to here, maybe a little bit higher than that actually, although it'd be great if it was right at that edge. And then I'll just come back to this level and then drop down and have the trunk, you know, sort of the deep section of the trunk in there. But that gets me a long ways to the important stuff. Again, it's all about get these clips in the right place. So I'm gonna go ahead and clamp this up, put the clips on, and see if I can get the top to fit. Look at that. I have a Targa top secured in the trunk. that is a happy, happy thing. This side can come forward a little bit more. Let's just for fun. Now this should be a no-brainer. This should go on just fine. But of course it doesn't. And why is that? Oh, there it goes. Oh, weird, what's it doing? Oh, it's this thing. Okay, so I think the roof does need to be pushed farther forward. There we go. It's funny, my 914 buddies call sometimes and say, hey, on my 914, and I interrupt them and I say, I don't know anything about stock 914s. Oh my goodness, so I don't even know how Targa roofs are supposed to fit. But anyway, there we go. It looks like what it really does need to do is get pushed virtually all the way into these clips. And that's fine. And that sets these things straight up at the back like they're sitting now. And actually, let me just use this camera as the check to see what kind of clearance we have. We have clearance. Look at that. Clearance at the cap. So there we go. One fit Targa roof. And I'm calling that good. I'm calling that good. Okay, next step is going to be figuring this seal out. So you can see with the plenum, well, with the manifold back in, the plenum actually can't come all the way into position. It's just loose because it contacts right here. And you can see that, well, maybe you can't see, but the plenum itself is hard up against this. So the top is in place, and you can see what I got to figure out here is I got to move this panel in this center section where the notch is going to be. It's too bad it's not all like that. That side fits just fine. But I'm going to move the whole panel back, probably up just under 3/4 of an inch or so, so that this seal, this is where the seal sort of slides down onto this blade of metal. This has got to get moved back to still clear the front of the roof and allow for a little seal to sit down onto it. And I may have to angle the thing back directly because, you know, I got to get it away from the plenum, and the motor still has to be able to go up and down a little bit. So I want to think about that for just a bit. So while I'm thinking about that, I started playing with something else. I started playing with trying to figure out what I might like in terms of a trunk liner. Now this looks terrible, so pardon me for the terribleness, but it's just crappy cardboard that I had lying around, and I just kind of wanted to get a feel for what it might look like. So as I mentioned earlier, I can come off at this line. This is actually slanting downhill at a few degrees, so that's good. And if I kind of go to where the original 914 base was, I got plenty of depth here. I mean, I can get a soft bag in here, you know, with the roof in, no big deal. And again, this is just meant to give me some basic ideas. You know, this would be rolled to represent this shape here. And then I'm going to bring you around this side and show you kind of another potential idea. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'd like to keep this tight against, or relatively tight against, you know, match this curve of this tube here. So this would be nice and soft radius. And then have this part, as it comes down to clear the transmission hanger, have this step out. And then this would have a panel, you know, again, bendy cardboard, but this would have a panel in here. And then when it gets down, you can see that the floor of the trunk is going to have to be, can be lower than what's going on here with these transmission cooler lines. And I'll either have this thing stay at this height, you know, this same height all the way back, or there's a possibility that I could tip it down a little bit and have it be coincidental here. And that would mean I'd have a little wedge, like a little cone wedge here to pick up the shape of the trans, you know, so I'd have a little hump in the trunk. So then I went after Clarencing to make sure that the manifold would not interfere. And you can see, man, it was just bam, right up against that. So this was going to have to go at any rate. And so now this section has to be stepped out into this area. And then I need to bridge back up to it. So now I have to figure out how to make sure the roof clears everything as this is being constructed. So when the roof is stored, it's not interfering here. And I know as long as I'm inboard of that dimension, in here about, I don't know, a little less than 3/4 of an inch, I'm good for the intake manifold and the plenum. But here was something that turned out to be quite advantageous. Check this out. The joy of removable body panels. Look at this. How cool is this? I can just clip this panel onto the roof. And you can see that as I'm rebuilding this step, you got to remember we're now under the car looking at it from the engine side. But as I'm rebuilding this step and wondering where this wall can be, all I got to do is make sure that it clears the roof. And I can build it right here on the roof and know for sure that I've got the clearance I need. And this is, this is pushed all the way in. So this is worst case fitment. And that's just, it's like Legos, only better. Anyway, so I'm going to go after just building this right here on the roof and mocking up what I need, and we'll get this all solved. Pretty cool. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. Went a little bit longer than I normally do. This one's over 20 minutes or so, but leave me a comment and let me know what you think. If you prefer a little bit longer watch, or if the kind of 10 to 12 minute length that I'm typically doing is easier for you guys to consume. And anyway, appreciate the comments, questions, appreciate you watching. So we'll see you again real soon. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.